For years, Jacob Miles has mopped the 47th floor halls long after the city sleeps. To the world, Sienna Caldwell is a legendary CEO. To him, she's just another closed door. Until a fallen photo on her desk reveals a truth he never expected, one that includes him. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. By 10:45 p.m. The skyscraper felt like a giant glass skeleton, quiet, hollow, held together only by humming vents and tired janitors. Jacob Miles pushed his mop cart down the 47th floor corridor, the night shift tugging at his bones. His crooked name tag bounced against his blue uniform with every step. He checked his phone. A photo of 8-year-old Lila appeared, wrapped in her favorite blanket, inhaler beside her, smiling at him like she had no idea how hard he was fighting to keep everything together. A text from his neighbor followed, "Homework done. Breathing normal. She's safe. Don't rush." He always rushed. Bills didn't wait. At the end of the hallway, a soft white glow leaked from a frosted glass door. Sienna Caldwell, Chief Executive Officer. Everyone in the building talked about her like she was part myth, part blade, cold, brilliant, untouchable. Jacob had never spoken to her. He wasn't supposed to. Janitors weren't part of her world. He swiped his badge. The office door clicked open. Inside, the city stretched beyond the glass walls like a shimmering ocean of lights. Everything on her desk was perfectly aligned, expensive, intentional. Jacob reached over to empty the trash and wiped a faint coffee ring off the polished surface. Then his elbow brushed something. The framed photo tipped, slid, and hit the floor with a flat crack. Damn! He grabbed it quickly. The glass wasn't broken. But Jacob nearly dropped it again when he saw what was inside. 2 children sat on a rusted playground swing. A crooked fence behind them, a leaning oak tree, and a chipped basketball hoop. The boy, skinny, buzz-cut, clothes 2 sizes too big, was him. The girl beside him, bruised jaw, stubborn chin, eyes that dared the world to push harder. He whispered her name like a ghost. Emily? Ridgeview Children's Home. The smell of powdered eggs and cheap detergent hit him like a punch. But why? Why would Sienna Caldwell, billionaire CEO, ruthless business legend, keep a photo from a forgotten state group home? Before he could breathe, the office door swung open. A sharp voice cut through the air. "What are you doing with that photo?" Jacob jerked around so fast the frame almost slipped from his fingers. Sienna Caldwell stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway glow, her expression sharp enough to cut through the quiet. Her eyes dropped to the photo. "Put that down." Jacob set it on the desk immediately, stepping back as if the air itself had turned electric. It fell. "I was just trying to fix it. You're not paid to handle my personal items." She crossed the room with quick, controlled steps, lifting the frame as if his touch had contaminated it. Her movements were calm, but her jaw was tight. Too tight. "I'm sorry," Jacob said. "I didn't mean." "Why were you still in here?" she demanded. The safe answer, "I was emptying the trash," stuck somewhere behind his teeth. Because the truth was too heavy now, too loud. "I recognized that place," he said quietly. "That playground. The fence. The group home." Something flickered in her face, shock, dread, something raw, but it vanished before he could be sure. "You're mistaken," she replied coldly. "I'm not. I lived there. Ridgeview Children's Home." Her entire posture froze. Not a flinch, more like a full-body stop, as if he'd spoken a forbidden word. Jacob continued, voice shaking. "And that girl, the one in the photo. I knew her. Emily Hart." This time the color drained from her face. Just a shade, but enough for him to notice. That's enough, she snapped. You're out of line. I didn't mean. You're suspended. Effective immediately. Leave your badge with security. The words landed like a punch. Suspended. No job. No insurance. No stability for Lila. Miss Caldwell, please, he tried. I wasn't trying to. Get out. Her voice cracked. Barely. But it cracked. Jacob backed toward the door, pushing his cart with numb hands. The elevator ride down felt endless, each floor another reminder of everything slipping away. At the lobby desk, he removed his badge. The guard frowned. Rough night? Jacob forced a thin smile. Yeah. He stepped into the cold city air, breath curling into the night. Behind him, 47 floors up, Sienna Caldwell stood alone in her office. The photo gripped in her shaking hands. The wind off the river slapped Jacob awake as he walked, each block colder than the last. Suspension. No badge. No paycheck. He kept his head down, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets, trying not to think about the inhaler he had to refill next week, or the rent due in 12 days. Lila deserved better than this. He'd promised her better. By the time he reached their small apartment, the hallway light flickered like it was giving up. Inside, Lila slept curled on the couch, small chest rising and falling steadily. Jacob covered her with a blanket and sat beside her, rubbing his tired eyes. What was Sienna hiding? Why was that photo on her desk, perfectly framed like a memory she didn't want to forget? And how could Emily Hart become Sienna Caldwell? He barely slept. Just drifted in and out until morning blurred its way in. By early afternoon, his phone buzzed with a news alert. He glanced at it, expecting something about the weather. Instead, the headline punched him in the gut. Caldwell Industries announces redevelopment of Ridgeview Children's home property. A cold shock rolled down his spine. Ridgeview, the place he and Emily had grown up. The crumbling building where promises were whispered through broken vents. The place she swore she'd fix one day. And now Sienna, Emily, was planning to tear it down. Why? To erase it? To erase them? Before he could process it, a knock hit the door. Hard. Jacob froze. Another knock, firmer this time. He opened the door slowly. 2 security officers from Caldwell Industries stood in the hallway. Jacob Miles, one of them asked. His stomach dropped. Yes. You're requested at the Caldwell Tower. CEO wants to speak with you. Now. Jacob blinked. She suspended me. She also told us to bring you. The guard's tone held an undertone Jacob couldn't read. Respect? Worry? Instructions given in a rush? Jacob looked back at Lila sleeping on the couch. I need to call someone to watch my daughter. We already arranged that, the guard said. Your neighbor is waiting. His pulse kicked up. Something was happening, something big, something he wasn't ready for. Jacob grabbed his coat, heart pounding. As they led him down the stairs, he asked, "What is this about?" The guard hesitated a moment. She said, he cleared his throat, that you were right. Jacob stumbled on the last step. Right about what? Ridgeview? Emily? The photo? Whatever the answer was, the CEO who had thrown him out last night was now demanding he come back. Something was cracking open, and Jacob wasn't sure if he was prepared for the truth waiting 47 floors above the city. The elevator climbed so quietly it felt like the building was holding its breath. Jacob stood between the 2 security officers, palms damp, pulse thudding in his ears. Last night he'd been thrown out like he didn't exist. Now he was being escorted back in like someone important, or someone dangerous. When the doors slid open on the 47th floor, the hallway was dim except for a single light spilling from the boardroom. Inside, one guard said. Jacob stepped through the glass doors, and froze. The entire boardroom was empty except for her. Sienna Caldwell stood at the far end of the long table, back to the windows, city lights framing her like a portrait. Today she wasn't in heels or armor. She wore a simple gray sweater, sleeves pushed up, hair pulled back without effort. And she looked tired. Almost human. "Sit," she said quietly. Jacob obeyed, not trusting his voice. For a long moment, she didn't speak. She just stared at the folder on the table, Ridgeview documents, old property records, stamped reports. Finally, she said, "You weren't supposed to see that photo." Jacob forced himself to meet her eyes. "I didn't mean to." "I know." Her voice cracked gently around the edges. "But you did." She took a breath that sounded like it hurt. "That girl in the photo," she continued, "Emily Hart, she doesn't exist anymore." Jacob's throat tightened. "She existed to me." Sienna flinched, an involuntary, unguarded reaction. He kept going. Carefully. "You were Emily." "I know you were." Silence stretched thin. Then, she nodded. "Just once." Jacob's breath left him. Years of wondering, had she been adopted? Moved? Lost? Hurt? All condensed into that tiny motion. Sienna's voice softened, stripped of the CEO's steel. "I changed my name. Changed everything. I buried Emily because she was weak. Powerless. A liability." "No," Jacob said, shaking his head. "She was brave." Sienna looked away quickly, jaw tight. He leaned forward. "Why tear down Ridgeview? Why erase the only place she ever mattered?" Sienna's eyes lifted sharply. Pain flickered there, old, deep, and carefully hidden. "Because I don't want anyone finding out where I came from," she whispered. The confession hit the room like a dropped weight. "But someone already has," Jacob said quietly. Sienna shut her eyes for a moment. Then she slid a document across the table toward him. "Before I make my final decision," she murmured, "I need you to tell me everything you remember about Ridgeview." Jacob stared at her. This wasn't anger. This wasn't punishment. This was fear. And she was asking the only person left from that past, the janitor she'd suspended, to help her face it. He took a breath. "Where do you want me to start?" Sienna didn't sit. She paced, a slow, restless line along the edge of the boardroom windows. Behind her, the city glittered, busy and indifferent. Inside the room, however, everything felt narrowed to the single question she had asked. "Tell me everything you remember." Jacob swallowed. Memories he'd kept sealed for years surfaced before he could stop them. Ridgeview wasn't just a building, he began quietly. It was a storm. A bad one. Sienna stopped walking. "Do you remember the basement?" Jacob continued. "The old storage room where the heater never worked?" Her fingers curled at her sides. "That's where Emily used to hide when the nights got rough. When the shouting started. Or when the new kids came in scared out of their minds. She was always the one comforting them." Sienna exhaled slowly, a breath trembling with ghosts. "She wasn't weak," Jacob added gently. "She was the strongest kid in that whole place." A silence stretched between them, thin but heavy. After a moment, Sienna moved to the table and pulled a file from the stack. "Do you know why Ridgeview is being demolished?" "No." She opened the folder. Legal documents. Architect's plans. A map of the entire block. It's a redevelopment project. Profitable. Clean. Forgettable. Her eyes hardened, but the hardness wasn't aimed at him. "But 3 months ago, a reporter submitted a public records request. For what? Jacob asked. For every resident who lived at Ridgeview between 1998 and 2005. Jacob's heart lurched. Looking for you? Or for a scandal, she said bitterly. Conditions were bad. The state shut the place down years after we left. If the press finds my connection to it, she didn't finish. She didn't need to. It could destroy everything she'd built. CEOs weren't allowed to be vulnerable. Or human. Or from group homes. Jacob leaned back. The pieces were aligning into a picture he never expected to see. So you want to demolish it before the truth comes out? I want to erase it, she whispered. Every brick. Every file. Every reminder. Jacob felt the air shift, something between them tightening, twisting. But what about the kids who lived there? He asked. Our memories don't disappear because you bulldoze the building. Sienna's gaze snapped to his. I can't let my past ruin my work. I can't let those years define me. Jacob held her stare. You can't pretend Emily never existed, he said softly. Her voice dropped into something close to a plea. I don't know how to be her again. Jacob spoke before he could think. You don't have to be. You just have to stop running from her. The room fell silent, one of those silences that could break a life in half. Finally, Sienna whispered, then help me. Jacob wasn't sure he'd heard her correctly. Help you, he repeated. Sienna nodded, but her posture remained rigid, like admitting she needed anything from anyone cost her more than money ever could. I don't know what to do with all of this, she said, gesturing toward the files, the photos, the evidence of a life she'd buried so deeply she almost convinced herself it wasn't real. You're the only person who remembers Ridgeview the way I do. The only one who can help me understand what to do next. Jacob sank slowly into the chair, trying to steady himself. What exactly are you asking for? A faint tremor ran through her voice. The board wants construction to move forward immediately. The demolition permits are almost finalized. She swallowed. I stalled them. For now. But I can't do this alone. Jacob frowned. Why me? You have lawyers, consultants, entire teams. None of them knew Emily Hart, she cut in sharply. Then softer, none of them knew me before I rebuilt myself. Jacob looked at the woman standing in front of him. The CEO. The billionaire. The force of nature. And beneath all that, a frightened girl who had learned to survive by burying every trace of who she used to be. I can tell you what Ridgeview was, he said. But I can't tell you what you should do with it. Her voice lowered. Then come with me. Before he could ask where, she grabbed a coat from the back of a chair and walked toward the elevator. Jacob followed, nerves buzzing. They rode down in silence. When the doors opened, a black SUV waited at the curb. Within minutes, they were driving through the city, past the glittering downtown lights, past the quiet neighborhoods, into the older blocks where time moved slower. Then the SUV stopped. Ridgeview Children's Home stood ahead of them. A chain-link fence circled the crumbling building. Windows boarded up. Yard overgrown. A place once filled with noise and fear and small moments of fragile hope. Sienna stepped out, her breath visible in the cold. Jacob joined her. They stood shoulder to shoulder in front of the ruins that had shaped them both. Sienna's voice came out barely above a whisper. I haven't been back here since the day they took me away. Jacob glanced at her. Then why come now? Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with something heavier. Because if I destroy this place, she said, I need to understand what I'm destroying. She looked at the building as if it might speak back. Walk with me, she murmured. Tell me what you remember. Jacob hesitated. Going back into Ridgeview meant reopening every scar he'd learned to hide. But when he looked at Sienna, Emily, he saw someone who'd been carrying her scars alone. He nodded. And together, they pushed open the rusted gate. The gate groaned as they pushed it open, metal scraping concrete like an old warning. Jacob stepped through first, his flashlight cutting a pale path across the dead grass. Sienna followed close behind, arms folded tightly as though the cold, or the memories, threatened to break her in half. Up close, Ridgeview felt smaller than he remembered. The windows were boarded, graffiti climbed the walls, and the once bright murals painted by volunteers were now sun-bleached ghosts. "This place," Jacob whispered. "It used to feel endless." Sienna didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on a doorway hanging crooked from its hinges. She stepped toward it, hesitating only once before crossing the threshold. Inside, dust swirled in the flashlight beam. Broken chairs. A rusted radiator. Old posters peeling off the walls with mottos like "Be kind and tomorrow matters." The irony stung. Jacob pointed to a narrow corridor. Dorms were down there. Boys on the left, girls on the right. Sienna's breathing hitched. "I remember the sound," she murmured. "That hallway, it echoed everything." They moved slowly, cautiously. Each step was a trip-wire to the past. Jacob nudged open a door with his boot. The room was empty except for 2 metal bed frames and a cracked window. "This used to be mine," he said. Sienna stood in the doorway, her voice soft. "I used to sneak in here. After lights out." Jacob smiled faintly. "You stole the blankets." "You snored," she countered. For the first time, the tension between them eased, just a crack, just enough to let an old familiarity breathe. But the moment didn't last. Jacob opened the next door. Sienna's old room. Her flashlight swept across the walls, tiny scratches still visible where someone had carved little dashes to mark the days. Her days. Sienna took a shaky step inside. "I did this," she whispered, touching one faint groove. "I counted until I didn't want to count anymore." Jacob stepped closer. "Why did they take you away so suddenly?" "No one ever told us." The light in her hand trembled. "I never told anyone this," she said. "Not even my board. Not my closest advisors." She turned toward him, the weight of the past finally cracking through the armor. "They weren't supposed to take just me," she said. "They were coming for you too." Jacob froze. "What?" Sienna nodded slowly. "There was an investigation, something ugly. They planned to split us up, far apart. I ran. I hid in the laundry room until it was too late, and when they finally found me and dragged me out, her voice broke. "I thought you'd be gone when I woke up in the new home. I thought they took you." Silence filled the room, cold and suffocating. Jacob swallowed hard. "Emily. I waited for you. You vanished." Sienna's eyes shimmered with a memory she had tried to suffocate for decades. "I didn't disappear," she whispered. "I was taken." She looked past him then, toward the far end of the corridor, where a boarded door stood half-rotten. "That room," she said. "There's something I need to show you. Something I never wanted anyone to see." She moved toward it, each step slow and deliberate. Jacob followed. Whatever was behind that door wasn't just a memory. It was the truth she had run from her entire life. The boarded door loomed at the end of the hallway like a sealed vault. Someone had hammered the planks on in a hurry, crooked nails, splintered wood, the kind of job done by people who didn't want anyone looking inside again. Sienna stopped in front of it, her breath fogging in the cold. "This is where it happened," she whispered. Jacob felt the air tighten. "Where what happened?" She didn't answer. Not verbally. She reached for a loose board, dug her fingers underneath, and pulled. The wood snapped free with a sharp crack that echoed through the empty halls. 2 more boards followed, one with effort, one with a frustrated kick, until the door stood unsealed. Jacob pushed it open slowly. The room inside was small. Bare. A single barred window. A broken chair. Scratches on the wall, not tally marks this time, but frantic, desperate arcs. Sienna stepped in like she was walking into a memory she'd never escaped. They called it the quiet room, she said. But it wasn't quiet. Not for the kids who were locked in here. Jacob's stomach twisted. He remembered the rumors. The screams. The silence afterward. They put me in here, Sienna continued, voice cracking. One night. They said I was too disruptive. That I caused trouble. That I made the younger kids cling to me too much. Jacob stared at her, horrified. You were helping them. She shook her head. Didn't matter. They wanted obedience, not kindness. She walked to the corner and knelt, brushing dust aside. Carved into the floorboards were faint letters, crooked, shallow, but unmistakable. D+E. We keep our promise. Jacob felt his throat close. We made that together. Sienna nodded. I carved the second line the night they locked me in. I kept repeating it to myself until I fell asleep. But when morning came, her voice wavered. You were gone from the dorm. The bed empty. Your things, missing. Jacob blinked hard. They moved me to isolation for a week because I defended one of the younger boys. When I got back, you were gone. Sienna pressed a hand over her mouth, eyes wet. All this time, I thought I failed you. That I left you alone. Jacob stepped toward her. You didn't fail me. You survived. That's not failure. But Sienna shook her head violently. You don't understand. Ridgeview didn't just break us, it hurt a lot of kids. And if the press connects me to this place, if they uncover what happened here, she looked up at him, terrified. They'll destroy me, Jacob. Jacob met her eyes. They won't destroy you for the past, he said softly. But they might destroy you for trying to hide it. Sienna went still. He continued, voice steady despite the weight of the moment. You can erase this building. You can burn every file. But the truth? It'll claw its way out eventually. Silence. Heavy. Trembling. True. Finally, Sienna whispered, then what am I supposed to do? Jacob didn't hesitate. You rebuild it, he said. Not as a development project. As a place that helps kids instead of hurting them. A place Ridgeview should have been. Her breath caught. And you, Jacob continued, stop running from Emily Hart and start fighting for the kids she swore she'd protect. Sienna stared at him, really stared, as if seeing something she'd forgotten existed. Hope. Possibility. A way forward. Then footsteps echoed behind them, heavy, deliberate. Jacob tensed. Sienna turned sharply. Someone else had entered the building. Jacob stepped in front of Sienna instinctively, shielding her with his body. The beam of a flashlight swept across the hallway, bouncing off broken glass and peeling paint. Sienna Caldwell, a deep voice called, I knew I'd find you here. She stiffened. Oh God, not tonight. The man emerged from the shadows, a tall figure in a thick black coat, polished shoes cutting through the dust. His hair was silver at the temples, his jaw tight with authority. Jacob recognized him instantly from company newsletters and TV interviews. Nathan Cole. Chairman of the Caldwell Industries Board. A man who smiled like a politician and negotiated like a shark. His gaze landed on Jacob. And the janitor. Interesting. Jacob didn't move. Nathan shifted the flashlight onto Sienna. You didn't show up to the emergency board call. Imagine my surprise learning you were here, nostalgic sightseeing at the ruins of a lawsuit waiting to happen. Sienna's tone was brittle. What are you doing here? What I always do, Nathan replied calmly. Cleaning up your messes. He stepped into the quiet room, eyes scanning the carved floorboards with unsettling interest. This little closet made quite a few headlines after Ridgeview was shut down. 4 allegations, 2 investigations, messy history. Exactly the kind of thing your reclusive childhood makes inconvenient. Sienna flinched. Jacob stepped forward. She wasn't hiding anything for convenience. She was a kid. Nathan gave him a cold, amused look. And you must be the janitor she suspended last night. Fascinating how quickly you've reappeared. Jacob's fists tightened. Sienna glared at Nathan. You followed me. Nathan shrugged. When a CEO panics, the board notices. And when a CEO wanders into a dilapidated scandal site we're about to demolish, the board intervenes. He turned to her fully now, his voice lowering into something sharp. You will sign the demolition order tonight. Quietly. You will cut all emotional ties with this place. The press request will be buried, the record sealed, and Ridgeview will be turned into profitable real estate, something that actually benefits shareholders. Sienna's voice trembled. Nathan. I can't. You can. And you will. Jacob stepped between them. No. She won't. Nathan's expression iced over. Careful, son. You have no idea the weight of the forces you're playing with. Jacob didn't back down. I grew up here. She did too. We know what this place took from us. Destroying it to hide the truth isn't healing, it's cowardice. Nathan's jaw ticked. This is business, he snapped. This is survival, Jacob shot back. For the first time, Nathan's confidence wavered. Sienna's voice broke the tension. Nathan, she said, quietly but firmly, I'm not signing anything tonight. Nathan's eyes hardened into something dangerous. This is a mistake, Sienna. A career-ending one. She lifted her chin. Maybe it's time I stop being afraid of who I was. Nathan stepped closer, lowering his voice to a hiss. If you don't bury Ridgeview now, someone else will bury you with it. Jacob moved immediately, blocking him. Nathan stared between them, CEO and janitor, united in a way he couldn't quite calculate. Then, slowly, he smiled. A very touching reunion, he murmured. But emotions don't change outcomes. I'll give you until tomorrow morning. Then you either sign, or the board will replace you. He turned to leave. But before he stepped through the doorway, he added. And you, Mr. Miles, should stay far away from this. People who get involved where they don't belong tend to disappear. His footsteps faded down the hall. Sienna's voice shook. He means it. Jacob placed a steady hand on her shoulder. So do I. Sienna stood frozen long after Nathan's footsteps vanished, her breath shallow, her hands trembling at her sides. Jacob kept his hand on her shoulder until she finally exhaled, a small, unsteady release of fear she'd been holding for decades. He's right, she whispered. The board can replace me. If I don't do what they want, everything I built disappears. And if you do what they want, Jacob replied gently, everything Emily believed in disappears. She closed her eyes. Emily Hart. A name she had buried so deep it felt like a wound reopening every time Jacob spoke it aloud. He turned toward her fully. You asked me what to do. It's simple. You take control of the story before they use it against you. What does that even mean? It means, Jacob said, you tell the truth. Yourself. On your terms. Her eyes widened. A public statement? Jacob, that could destroy the company. Or save it, he countered. People don't hate honesty. They hate lies. And right now, Nathan is betting you're too afraid of your past to use it. Sienna paced, her mind unraveling and rewinding at once. If I go public, if I talk about Ridgeview, the board will revolt. Then let them, Jacob said. You're stronger than all of them combined. You survived this place. You survived everything they never had to. She stopped walking. Her expression shifted, not confidence, not yet, but clarity. You really think I can do this? Jacob stepped closer. I know you can. The words hit her harder than he expected. She blinked rapidly, a single tear slipping before she could stop it. Sienna, he added gently, you don't have to face the past alone anymore. From outside, a sudden gust rattled the boarded windows. The building moaned like it remembered every secret ever kept inside it. Sienna straightened her shoulders. Then tomorrow. I tell the truth. Jacob nodded. And Ridgeview? Her answer came without hesitation. We rebuild it. As something good. Something needed. She turned to him, the CEO armor gone. What remained was Emily, the girl who once promised him they'd change the world someday. Jacob. I want you on the project, she said. Leadership position. Full salary. Benefits for Lila. I want you to help build the center we both needed. Jacob stared at her, stunned. Me? You, she said firmly. No one else understands Ridgeview like we do. And no one cares like you do. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jacob nodded, voice thick. I'm in. Sienna's shoulders sagged with relief. They stepped out of the quiet room together, pushing the door closed behind them as if sealing the past inside, not erased, but acknowledged. Outside, dawn was beginning to soften the sky. Pale light spilled over the broken brick and boarded windows, turning the ruins of Ridgeview gently gold. Sienna looked at Jacob. You know. Emily always believed people deserved second chances. Jacob smiled. So does Jacob. And for the first time in years, she smiled back, softly, honestly. Two kids who once survived this place were now returning as adults to rewrite its story. Side by side. Together. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.